Good morning, good evening, friends. Welcome to my channel, Ek Kitab Se Ek Moti, in which I usually select a great idea from a book, and then I try to explain that idea or try to unpack and unfold that idea so that it can it can be relevant in the modern context and in the modern times, and it can also help us practically in our lives. So today I'm going to read a few lines from this book, Lectures on the Ramayana. These lectures were delivered by the Right Honorable V.S. Srinivasa Sastri, and this book has been published by the Sanskrit Academy, Madras, that is Chennai. I think the original edition was published in the 1940s, because if you look for an online copy of this, the 1949, I think a 1949 edition is available on archive.org. So I'm going to read a portion related to a conversation between Sri Ram and Hanumanji. So before that, let me just talk about the Right Honorable V.S. Srinivasa Sastri, and also about when he delivered these lectures. The Right Honorable, that's a title. I think even Winston Churchill had this title, the Right Honorable. And there were several great men of the past who had this title, the Right Honorable. V.S. Srinivasa Sastri was one of these great men. He was considered the silver-tongued orator of the British Empire. That is, he was an exceptional master of the English language, and he acquired this mastery not by going to expensive schools, not by going to Cambridge or Oxford or Harvard or any other world-renowned university. He mastered the English by just reading a dictionary like a normal book. That is, he used to read dictionaries cover to cover, and his favorite dictionary was the Webster's Dictionary. So he used to buy these dictionaries in all the latest editions. So as improvements were made in the dictionaries, the Webster's organization or company used to bring out these latest editions with some additions, improvements, and so on. So Srinivasa Sastri made it a habit to to buy these latest editions as they became available in the market of those times. And the other thing is, when he became a teacher, I think he was 19 years old when he became a teacher, an English teacher, I think. He spent half of his first salary on buying that book, a Webster's Dictionary. So, because he knew what tools were necessary to master the English language, so he started doing the right things. He set out to do the right things in order to do a job well. So he bought the tools necessary to do his job well. So in addition to attitude, in addition to knowledge, we also need to have the tools in order to accomplish our tasks. And we should try to get that tool, as soon as possible in order to complete that task as soon as possible. So he wanted to become a master of the English language. So he, although it was an expensive book at that time, I think he spent half of his salary, he still managed to buy that book because he considered it a necessary tool in order for him to master the English language. So now that was his interest in the English language. He, regarding his education, I think he had 2 master's degrees. So he was an MA in Sanskrit. He was an MA in English, as far as I know. But you can check his educational qualifications on Google. And the other thing is, regarding these lectures, so these were delivered, I think, in 1944, for 8 months in Mylapore, in one of the halls of Mylapore. So these were delivered. The series began on 5/4/1944 and concluded on 8/11/1944. So fourth month is March, and then it continued until November. So like we have 7 or 8 months, I think. And so these were delivered in the Madras Sanskrit College ground. So in Mylapore, you still have that college when you go along that road, right, that leads to the Kabalishwara temple. I think on the left hand side you'll see this great ancient college. So we have talked about the location of these lectures. We have talked about the lecturer himself. Now let's come to the subject matter. So as he was a Sanskrit scholar, and he considered Valmiki to be one of the greatest writers. So the Valmiki Ramayana was his favorite book. So he used to pore over the Valmiki Ramayana, and he used to enjoy the book and also learn from it, and he used to inspire others to read the Valmiki Ramayana as well. So both as a great resource for ethical conduct, to learn how to behave ourselves. Other than that, he also used to enjoy the poetry of Valmiki, the beautiful description of nature and also human nature, his amazing grasp of human nature. So that's why Srinivasa Sastri used to read the Valmiki Ramayana himself, and he used to encourage others to read the Valmiki Ramayana. So with these introductory remarks, let me just move on to the segment that I have selected for today. Now it appears in the 20th lecture, and it's about a conversation between Ram and Hanuman in the jungle. I think it's in the Kishkindha Kand of Ramayana. So let me just read it now, and also observe his choice of words and his mastery of English. So especially for children, if you want to master the English language, just read some of his books and some of his lectures and letters. Most of them are available for free on the internet. So just Google his name and just say maybe books, V.S. Srinivasa Sastri books and lectures and letters, and you'll find many of his books available for free online. So let me go ahead and read some of these lines. Now I am going to deal with Hanuman as he was appreciated by Ram. Hanuman's greatness can have no measure, no just and adequate measure, except in the judgment of Ram himself. If Ram accepted him, that is all right. So, in order to find out what Rama thought of him, now I may pronounce it as Rama or Ram sometimes, so please apologies for this variation. So, in order to find out what Ram thought of him, we must go to 3 or 4 contexts in the poem where, now some people say poem, so I prefer to pronounce it as poem. We must go to 3 or 4 contexts in the poem where Ram speaks his mind fully about Hanuman. In Kishkindha, where Sugriva and his 4 ministers had taken refuge, that was the Kishkindha forest. In Kishkindha, where Sugriva and his 4 ministers had taken refuge on that hill, the Risyamuka, the 2 brothers met Hanuman first. Hanuman went in the guise of a fair and acceptable man. Fair in a sense, very just. In the guise of a fair and acceptable man. He addresses the brothers and asks them who they are. In marking the enquiry, Hanuman shows his command of the Sanskrit language, his command not only of its idiom, but his great command of the ancient lore and of the diplomatic vocabulary, and casts such a spell over the brothers that they were unable to resist. Now just look at some of the words that he's used. Cast a spell, unable to resist, and then which are the phrase? No just and adequate measure. So it's not just the words, but the way he puts these words together, right? That also makes a difference. So when you listen to when you read these lectures of V.S. Srinivasa Sastri, you can sense immediately how great a command of the English language he had. Now, I tried to get some of his recordings. To my knowledge, some of the recordings are still available with a person. I think he's a retired IAS officer, but I think they haven't been uploaded to YouTube. But I think they should be done soon, otherwise, the recordings may be lost, because I think these recordings are on discs. So, during earlier days, I mean, a long time ago, we used to have these discs, right? I'm not talking about the compact disc. I'm just trying to remember the name of that. These gramophone discs, we used to have in olden times. So they may be lost. So I think it's very important to preserve his great voice, which I haven't heard yet, but I would like to hear his voice at least once. So let me continue. There is a good rule in court circles. It is proper for a king to speak to a king, a minister to a minister. So, although Ram would have replied to Hanuman, who questioned them at great length, he asks his brother to do so. And in speaking to Lakshmana in the hearing of Hanuman, Ram says words which are cast in such high terms that you would wonder that in a few minutes' talk, anybody could produce in the mind of such a judge as Ram such a tremendous impression. This is what Ram says to Lakshman. Now here are some Sanskrit verses that I'm going to read. Na rig veda vinitasya na yajur veda dharinah na sama veda vidushash shakyam evam prabhashitum nunam vyakaranam kritsnam anena bahudha shrutam bahuvyahartanena na kinchidapa shabditam na mukhe netrayor vapi lalate cha bhruvos tatha anyeshvapi cha gatreshu doshasam viditah kvachit avistaram asandigdham avilambitam adrutam urasthang kanthagam vakyam vartate madhyame sware sanskarakrama sampannam adrutam avilambitam Ucharayapi kalyanim vacham hridayaharinim. Now these are beautiful Sanskrit words describing his great ability to express himself. Now we'll look at the English version soon. Anaya chitraya vacha tristhanav vyanjanasthaya kasya naradhyate chittam udyata ser rerapi evam vidho yasya duto न भवेत् पार्थिवस्य तु सिद्ध्यन्ति हि कथन्तस्य कार्याणां गतयो नघ एवं गुणगणैर्युक्ता यस्य कार्यसाधकाः तस्य सिद्ध्यन्ति सर्वार्था दूतवाक्यप्रचोदितः. Now remember, it doesn't mean that if we love the English language we should not love our ancient scriptures. These things can go along together. So we shouldn't have this superstition that if someone is interested in English, he or she is not interested in our ancient languages and ancient culture and our Indian languages. These things can go together. So anyhow, I'll talk about that in another video that I will make on the Great Lifko Dictionary, where I saw a quotation by Rajaji on why the English language was essential for India. Now let me read what V.S. Srinivasa Sastri thinks about these verses. For one to speak as this person has spoken, one must know all the three Vedas and have them at command. It is possible for a person to get up 5 or 6 sentences in correct English, but when we go beyond them, we make slips and commit treason against the King's English. Remember, this was in the 1940s, so maybe the King George was ruling in England. So Queen Elizabeth may not have been coronated yet at that time. Hanuman spoke otherwise he would have said Queen's English. Hanuman spoke at considerable length. Although he spoke much and spoke long, he has not made a single error. He seems to be a great master of elocution. All the organs that help in the art of elocution are at his perfect command. No one has been mismanaged by him in any particular. His speech wins my heart completely and delights my very soul. If a man can talk like Hanuman, he can bring down to his knees even the worst and most implacable enemy. If there is a ruler among men who wants to accomplish great things, he must have at least one minister like this person. If a man has more than one servant like Hanuman, there is nothing on earth that he cannot accomplish. All things will turn out successful. The very first impression he produces on the brothers, he maintains to the end, not merely by his marvelous skill in manipulating the Sanskrit language, but by his complete devotion to duty and by the confidence that he produced that he was quite equal to the performance of the highest and the most arduous tasks. Now, the spelling is Arduous, but one of the standard pronunciations is arduous. Of the highest and the most arduous tasks, there is no danger that he will not face, no enemy whom he will not encounter, nothing that he will not face to perform services to his master. So there were a few lines regarding his communication skills, so I'll just read them again. Hanuman spoke at considerable length. Although he spoke much and spoke long, he has not made a single error. He seems to be a great master of elocution. All the organs that help in the art of elocution are at his perfect command. No one has been mismanaged by him in any particular. His speech wins my heart completely and delights my very soul. So it's very important to focus on elocution or speaking skills. I mean, I remember in my school days we used to have these elocution periods, but there was hardly any discussion of what these elocution principles are or were. I mean, they're still in existence. So we need to understand what are the basic principles of elocution. So I would suggest that you just type something like this, like elocution in English or books related to English elocution, and you will get a lot of ancient books, ancient in a sense like printed 200 or 300 years ago. They are available for free. You can easily read them and improve your elocution or pronunciation skills. I remember I was watching an interview of Morgan Freeman. So the interviewer asked him, how do you speak so well? How do you speak the English language so well? So Morgan Freeman said to him, I went to an elocution school. I went to an acting school where I was taught elocution and diction. So he was asked he continues the conversation, and Morgan Freeman tells the interviewer that his teacher, Morgan Freeman's diction and elocution teacher, used to ask him to pronounce the consonants. So you'll see that when you watch some of these people in the US talk or in Britain talk, right? Some of the modern guys and girls, I mean, or those of the modern times, you'll see that they sometimes kind of slur over these consonants and don't pronounce them. Like, for example, if you listen to some of them, I'm just thinking of a word that usually they pronounce that way. So, like, you may have words like arduous is fine, they pronounce it correctly. But I'm just unable to recall a word that I could produce as an example. So I'll just mention it later on. So what I'm trying to say is, if you watch some of those people, especially in Hollywood movies, those dialogues, you need not imitate them, because that's the English spoken by maybe they're uneducated. I mean, there's nothing wrong in being educated. What I'm trying to say is we should not try to imitate them. Because I had a friend who used to always tell me that, to improve my English, I watch all these Hollywood movies. But what made him think that watching all these Hollywood actors and actresses speaking, what makes you think that they are speaking in that educated standard English? Because when we learn these languages in our country, we learn the standard English. I mean, the English that the educated people speak. So if we watch all these Hollywood movies and we start imitating those actors and actresses, that might be considered informal and non-standard speech. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to improve your English language, just listen to some of the greatest orators of all times, and you'll not falter or make mistakes in your pronunciation. Like if you, if you listen to Martin Luther King, Jr. or Junior, and if you listen to some of the talks of Norman Vincent Peale and Ronald Reagan, and who else? If you listen to the talks of Jim Rohn, and who else? Winston Churchill. Some of the recordings are available, and they are YouTube has opened the opportunity to everyone. The gates of opportunity are open for anyone who is willing to master any skill, actually. So if you want to learn English, you can choose some of the great orators of all times. I'll make a video on that one, maybe at least one video on who have been some of the greatest orators of the English language, and orators in the English language, and I'll mention some of the names that that are at the top of that list. So you will also benefit from that list. Maybe you can just listen to them for a few minutes every day to improve your diction, elocution, and your presentation of ideas. So I think these are the things that I want to talk about in today's video. So let me recapitulate. So what we learn from this ancient scripture of India, the great Valmiki Ramayana, and especially from these passages, is that in order to influence someone positively, other than your character and conduct and good behavior, you should also have this elocution skills, communication skills, your mastery of the language that you're handling. So it's not that I'm trying to say that you should not make mistakes, but you should not remain at the same level. Initial stages, we all make mistakes. That's a very normal procedure. But our aim should be, speaking any language that we speak in a flawless manner, in a manner that can influence others positively, that make a good impression, because communication is extremely important, because it is our words and the tone with which we use our words. That's why Sri Ram, when describing Hanuman's ability, he mentions that he used all his organs, speech organs, in the correct way. Now, maybe he was also referring to the body language of Hanuman. So if you have some mannerisms that can distract others, that might be that might reduce or detract from your ability to influence others in a positive way through your communication skills. I hope you like this video. I'll in the description box I'll provide these exact words that I read from the great book. But you can also download this book from archive.org and go through the lectures and try to learn from Mr. V.S. Srinivasa Sastri, the Right Honorable V.S. Srinivasa Sastri. Thanks for watching this video.